to call Division 3 work session into operation. So as chair of the Division 3 of the House Finance Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency, and you're recording that, state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04 as extended, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone and by Zoom. The committee is using Zoom for this remote meeting. All members of the committee and the staff of state agencies with agenda items have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously watch and or listen to the meeting on Zoom or phone, following the directions and links provided in the House calendar, starting with House Calendar 8, running through, I think 16 is the most current. All of those are on the General Court website. We have previously given notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting telephonically. Those instructions, as I said, are in the House calendar. We are providing the public with a way to alert us should there be problems with access. So we would ask you to email fiscal, FISCAL, at leg.state.nh.us if you're having problems. And if you're having problems, we will adjourn the meeting and reschedule. Please note that all the votes that we take by roll call. And Mr. Clerk, if you're ready, let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance when each member states their presence. Please also state if there's anyone in the room with you during the meeting, and this is required under right to know.
Representative Earth.
Present, home alone in my home office.
Representative Weiler, I'm home in Kingston. Others in the house, I'm alone in this room. Representative Bean.
I'm home at my home in Guilford, and my wife is in and out of the house.
Representative Wallner.
Home in Concord, my husband is in the house.
Representative Nordgren.
Representative Nordgren, I'm in my dining room in Hanover and I'm alone.
Representative Rogers.
Catherine Rogers, I'm in Concord in my apartment with my dog Romeo.
Representative Edwards.
I'm in my home office in Auburn, and my wife and daughter are in the house, but my door is shut.
All members present.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Ripple, would you share the screen showing the email? The one that says the last 5 things tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay, first I want to thank Representative Rogers for reaching out to me. I thought I had turned a nice phrase about the Final Four being the end of March Madness, but as it turned out, we had 5 things. So thank you, Representative Rogers, for catching that and letting me know. As a result of that, we definitely will be talking about HB1 around family planning today. And then we have a pretty significant, I imagine kind of a long conversation on the Sununu Center. And Mr. Ripple sent out an email that had, I think, 9 attachments to it. And plus, I would encourage you to take a look at Ms. Maura O'Neill's email that with a report in it that I sent separately. I think we need to be familiar with all of those so that we can discuss them well this afternoon and make some decisions. I want to lock down where we stand on SYSC. And I would ask Representative Weiler and Representative Wallner, since you have so much experience in this area, I would be willing at that point to turn the chair over to you, Representative Weiler, to let you lead that part of the discussion. Is that, you're nodding your head? I think that's okay, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so we'll talk about that last because that's such a significant piece. Then we have two back of the budget votes. We reviewed them yesterday, so hopefully we're ready to vote on them today. I think we are. And then we voted on out an HB2 related to the ADT transfers to the community to coordinate care. But as we went to HB1, Representative Wallner pointed out that we ought to see the whole budget before we vote on that separate item. So at this point, hopefully we're up to speed and we can look at the HB1 impact and make a decision on that. And then DHHS requested some budget line changes that went out. I apologize because I think I've accidentally sat on that issue since about 9 or 10 days ago when the department sent it to us. And as I look at it, and I've talked a little bit to Mr. Ripple and gotten some secondary impact from Ms. Rounds, it seems like 1 through 19 are probably not particularly controversial. They tend to weigh each other out, net each other out. Item 20 is pretty significant, but we were briefed on it when we heard the New Hampshire Hospital presentation. There's one particular slide. Mr. Ripple, when we get to that, will you be able to show that one slide? Were you able to find it in the New Hampshire Hospital presentation?
I don't have it up, but I can find it now.
Yeah, we won't be talking about any of these. Well, maybe we could. Okay, so those are the 5 items for today. I think that if we do those 5, we've done everything and we're done, except for doing our finance committee work next week. And so this is really getting to be the last call. If you think we're missing something, if you want another discussion on something, please let me know, because this is really, the very last minute, as they say. So Mr. Ripple, I do have a question for you. On once we go through these conversations, I think that's going to generate an update to those 2 summary documents you did. The 2, I believe, the one with the line item details showing changes from HB1 and 2, and then the other one that just summarizes the general impact of them both. Do you need to produce those and have a vote on those also? Or if we just decide these incremental things, are we good? You're on mute, sir.
Sorry, the incremental votes are enough. You don't need to vote on the summary documents. If you are interested in those documents now, I do have updated versions reflecting what you did yesterday.
Well, why don't you hang on to them, because I think we're going to have to update them again based on today. And so okay. I don't see a need to, move copies around that are going to be out of date shortly.
Okay.
Representative Weiler, your hand is up, sir.
Yes, I got some updated revenue from Chris in the LBA, and he says that this is an amendment to HB1. It's official. I said, what about the fact we have this official thing? And he said, well, according to his reading, if we get anything official from Ways and Means, whether it's approved by the House or not, he thinks that the rules allow us to update things as we get them. But however, this is kind of late in the system. It's like almost 90 million in the first year and 74 million in the second year. So, I think those are better done in the Senate if we're going to, or we could, there's things we really want to prioritize. I think we could add some things back in, but this is kind of late in the game. These would take a couple of days to go through all this stuff. So I'm going to meet at noon with the speaker and see what he thinks. But to me, this is kind of late in the game.
Yes, sir. Could you clarify if those additions are off of the existing Ways and Means estimate or off of the estimates the governor used?
These are off of the existing Ways and Means, so that they're not off the governor. So obviously they're They're the additions to the green sheet.
So if we just accepted them and Mr. Ripple rolled them into our summary documents, wouldn't that just show, I'm not sure what we call that, the difference between revenues and expenses, wouldn't that just show a higher margin?
Yeah, I guess it would show a greater margin. We can say, recommend it to go to the rainy day fund for all of that. I mean, we've
And
done
that's,
a job.
sorry.
We pared down what we think is important and not in the Health and Human Services, which was our task. And then at the last minute with more revenue, I don't think is a fair game.
I agree that I don't think we should be chasing the opportunity to spend it at this point because we're wrapping up. But I'll come to you in just a second, Representative Woolner. I want to see what Mr. Ripple had to say.
I was just going to say that that's not anything you need to do in Division 3. That's more of a full committee thing.
Right?
Ah, brilliant. Thank you.
Sure.
That's the insight we hope for. All right, Representative Woolner, do you have a question, ma'am?
Yes, Representative Weiler, yesterday I thought you referred to, or yeah, yesterday, I guess it was $127 million. So now it's $164 million over the Ways and Means estimates.
That's the way it adds up. The table that Chris Shea sent me to accept, he had it in a rather unusual form. Compared with what we got on the green sheet. It shows total general fund, and then it shows education fund. And I wrote back to him and said, why are the numbers so different? He said, well, you failed to add the education trust fund, but he's got fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 23 in 2 columns. And the columns below that, he's got fiscal year 2018 and fiscal year 2019. So how was I to know that I'm supposed to add those figures with the education trust fund into the ones above to get the real total, which I did. So it's, and the figures have changed a bit from what we discussed. So now it's like 163.9 or 164 million, which is more than the original thing. It would still be roughly about 50. Well, let's see. Yeah, so it'd be about 90 above the 163. Yeah. So anyway, it's going to be more than what the governance was.
Since this issue is a great issue, but it's outside of the scope of Division 3.
Right.
Can we wrap this up, Representative Woolner? I don't want to stop you from talking more, though.
Well, I just wondered if Representative Weiler, if I could get that that piece of
When I
paper.
get it
that-
in a
from-
corrected form.
Okay,
I
from
send it
Chris.
To everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you. I would love to see that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So let's go to the oldest first on this, Mr. Ripple. Let's go to that 200K add to HB1. I'm taking you out of your anticipated sequence, I bet.
That's okay. I have it up here.
I'm gonna re-shut my door and tell the dog to quit barking. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but that dog has a really high-pitched bark. Pierces. Okay, so you may recall this was originally in one of the House bills that we voted on. Your hand is up, Representative Woolner. Do you have a question, or is that?
No, it's lowered. Thank you.
So this was a House Bill 2 item that simply showed a $200,000 reservation of funds to support the admissions, dispositions, and transfers transactions that help coordinate community care as our clients move around the state. And because that was for ongoing operations and sort of came a little late, in the governor's budget process, it got put into HB1. So because that is an ongoing expense, we voted to take it out of HB2 and put it back into HB1. And as we do that, HB1 reflects the $600,000 match that goes along with that 200,000. And then in the process of looking into this, one of our state employees noticed that there was an $804 typo. And so she's using this opportunity to clean up the typo and get the document more precise. So the effect on this is that we would add the 200,000 to the general funds because it's an operating expense. We'd add the 600,000 to the federal total because we'd be eligible for a 3-to-1 match apparently, and that would add 800,000 overall as an increase without really looking at the $804 typo. So that's what we're doing. Is there any conversation about this? Is Representative Irfan? We had talked briefly about this. I can't see if he's on.
I'm here, yes.
Do you have any thoughts on this, sir?
I think we should do it.
So I gotta fix my Zoom box so I can see everyone. Give me a second. I'm distracted.
My understanding is we agreed that the funding, what we were spending the money on was worthwhile. The ADT system, as you described it.
Hello.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, I'm
So-
getting egg white.
Could you mute? Yeah, there you go. So Representative Wallner, I think you wanted more time just because it was the right thing to do, not that you had an issue with this, but I
No
don't want to.
issue. No issue. I'm fine.
Okay. All right. So do you need a vote on this, Mr. Ripple? Or?
Yes, I think voting on this would be good.
Okay.
Is there an
So-
amendment number?
There's no amendment number since it's only a change to the numbers in House Bill 1. You could just take a motion to vote on the recommended changes to account 5952.
So moved.
Second,
It's being moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Not seeing any discussion. Would the clerk take a roll, please?
in favor of the motion to move the money, Representative Earth.
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes. Representative Bean.
Yes,
Representative Wallner.
Yes.
Representative Nordgren.
yes,
Representative Rogers.
Yes,
Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 7-0.
Thank you. So I would like us to consider the HB1 around family planning. There was some discussion about that yesterday. I believe Representative Irf and Rogers have gotten together twice to bounce things around, and Ms. Rounds participated a little bit this morning. So in that, a proposal has come forth that I'd like to share. And I understand Representative Rogers, you have an additional point of view that you'd like us to consider for HB1 family planning.
I would still like to offer the amendment that I offered yesterday, which has money that's in excess of the match, but has money that would fill the gap for the clinics that in fact will not be receiving federal monies until the federal gag order is lifted, and it will take approximately 9 months for that money to come through. So the amendment that I have would help fill that gap with general funds until the beginning of the year so that they would be able to get that funding.
Do you have words around that? Is that an HB2? Is that a footnote? Is that something?
It's an amendment to House Bill 1. It's the one that yesterday I had offered, I believe, Representative Ripple has that available. It's the same one we had yesterday.
Okay, so
Bring that
you
up.
want to, will you want to, not yet, will you want to discuss the wording of the footnote, or will you want to discuss the numbers in the accounts? Or
It's
both?
not a footnote, it's an amendment to the House Bill 1. And it simply changes the amount of money that's in there. I think
Okay, so Mr. Ripple, if we could start with HB 1 that you put together for me based on.
Oh, sure. Hold on one second here.
So let's just scroll down to the general funds line, okay, and talk about this. So Mr. Ripple, as I'm seeing the 811,805 in the first cell of the general fund, is that precisely the amount that was in the governor's budget? Because I'm remembering 812,000. So is that the,
I think this is the exact number.
okay, that's the precise number. Okay,
Yes.
that's all right. I had it in my head as a rounding thing. Okay, so 2 years ago, in the FY 18-19 budget, the general funds funded family planning lines at about 596,000 a year, 596. And then the Trump administration happened, and there were, moves and counter moves during his administration on acceptance and movement of federal money and supplementing and backfilling. Okay, so that's behind us. So what this proposal does is it says family planning is important to the state. We want to go from 596,000 that was being spent in FY19. We want to accept the governor's budget at 812 or 811, 805 to be more precise. That was the governor's recommendation. On top of that, because we voted on HB2 yesterday to require the physical and financial separation of family planning counseling from other medical procedures, we can anticipate the probability or possibility that the state is going to have to go get new vendors so that there isn't a gap in access to care. And because we want to encourage new vendors, new competition, I'm proposing that we add $50,000 in general funds, and the purpose of those general funds is written in that footnote. Of the amount appropriated in this class, 50,000 shall be used for the purpose of providing incentive fees to first-time contract awardees not to exceed 100,000, or excuse me, 10,000 per awardee. And also that none of these funds shall lapse within the biennium, but will lapse at the end of the biennium. So this gives new vendors a financial incentive to bid on these family planning contracts so that we don't end up having one entity exit the market without a replacement to maintain a continuity of operations. So that's what that 50,000 does. And it's basically says, hey, if you've never received a family planning contract and you're interested in bidding, if you get the bid, we're going to give you a $10,000 bonus for participating. You could rationalize that a little bit further, that just to think that they may have some startup costs that it could help them with. So I would have us increase the general fund from the governor's recommendation to 861,805, an addition of 50,000, with the note that 861 is considerably more than it was in FY19 when it was in the 596 category. So with that, I'm happy to answer any of your questions of what this HB1 is trying to do. And Representative Rogers?
Yes, I mean, I'm alarmed that you want to drive people out of business, which you've tried to do with the first gag order that you have in House Bill 2.
Not a gag order. There is no gag order.
Yes,
Please don't say that. There is no gag order.
I'm going to say it because there is. We have a difference of opinion, so I can state my opinion. And in
Right,
fact,
just categorically, you're wrong, but go ahead.
categorically, I'm not, but we have a difference of opinion.
We removed the gag order. We removed the gag order from the Leon amendment, and it is not what we passed yesterday. There is no gag order. Please do not mislead the public.
You can live in your fantasy and you can mislead the public, but what you're trying to do is.
All right, I'm willing to entertain a motion to approve this part of the budget.
So you're stopping discussion.
I'm not going to allow a misrepresentation of facts. And so I'm ready.
All
to
right, for
vote.
you to misrepresent the facts.
I'm ready to vote. Is there a motion?
So
to
moved.
accept? Is there a second?
And you're not going to consider the amendment that I'm offering.
So this has been moved and seconded. Is there any conversation on this HB1 proposal? Not seeing any. Mr. Clerk, would you please take a roll?
I have my hand,
Representative
Chairman.
Yes.
Weiler votes yes. Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
No,
Representative Nordgren,
No,
Representative Rogers,
No, and I'm alarmed you won't let me discuss anything.
Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 4-3.
All right, thank you. So next up on the agenda is let's look at the two back of the budget votes on personnel and dollars, please.
Sure.
Representative Norgren, do you have a question or comment?
question. Sorry, but could you go over the schedule for the day? I thought originally we were gonna meet at 9:30. We were then gonna recess until 2. And I just wanted a clarification of what your plan is for the day.
I think we're going to have to, that was an initial concept, but since we have a quorum and some of these are things that we've talked about and looked at and probably are ready to vote, I'm voting on them. Would you prefer to have the back of the budget vote this afternoon? Representative Nordgren?
I think whatever your plan is, obviously we need to finish today, so.
Yeah. So I think we've had an opportunity to look at these and let's get into the conversation part. Representative Rogers, your hand is up.
Yes. Are you going to continue in the vein if you disagree, anyone disagrees with you, you're going to cut off discussion?
I think it's fair to say that I've never done that, except
You just did
for in this particular instance where I just think it's a factual matter that you are misstating what we voted on yesterday. There was no gag order. We intentionally passed an amendment that removed it. And I don't want to use this forum to misinform the public. If you
So
would
if you-
like to misinform the public, you're welcome to do that outside of this hearing.
So if you disagree with one of us, you're going to cut off the discussion.
If you're misrepresenting obvious facts, yeah. If you're misleading the public intentionally, yes. And that's my
So
judgment.
if we have a disagreement on facts in any item, you will cut off the discussion.
I would reserve the right to, but you've worked with me for over a month and you know that's not my style. My style is to encourage the conversation and to support and facilitate the exchange of opinions that are contrary to my own. But I will not allow an overt misrepresentation of facts be issued from one of these meetings. And if you want to misrepresent facts, you're welcome to do that outside of
not-
this.
In my opinion, I am not misrepresenting the facts. I'm clearly stating them, and you are misrepresenting.
So I've made a decision that we're moving on.
So you are going to cut me off whenever I disagree with you. Thank you for
I
clarifying.
think my point is clear, and it's not exactly what you said, but if that's the effect you want to take from it, you're welcome to.
It's very clear, Mr. Chair.
Representative Wallner?
Are we ready to talk about the back of the budget?
Yes, ma'am. We're in the conversation mode. What would you like to say? Anything?
Well, I'm looking at the one that's up on the screen right now. I mean, I guess there are going to be 2 back of the budget amendments. And I'm looking at the one that is a reduction of the workforce for Health and Human Services of 226 full-time positions. And they have just come through a pandemic. And they have worked so hard over there to get New Hampshire, keep New Hampshire healthy, and to try to get us through what was a terrible situation for our state and for the nation. And we've trying to get people vaccinated and trying to keep people from getting coronavirus. And it's been a really hard year for them. And I know that their vacancy rate has been high because I'm sure that people had to stay home with their families, and some people probably took early retirement, concerned about their own health. And I think this is a really very devastating reduction of staff over there. Remembering that Karen Rounds came to us and did suggest 100 positions. I thought that was very brave of her to do that. And I really thought she was trying to come to us with a good solution to help people move forward. But now you've more than doubled her suggestion. And I just think this is going to be very difficult for the department as they try to rebuild. And that's what they need to do in the next 2 years, is rebuild that department. So I'm going to be voting no on this amendment, and hope that all of you will join me.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to clarify one thing. And if Ms. Rounds is on the line, maybe you want to bring her in, Mr. Ripple. Okay, and the thing I want to clarify is I believe that Ms. Rounds came to us with 100 at my request, and that she was helping me in my request for 100 to figure out what the financial impact was. So, because I didn't know the average per person cost associated with that. So I don't want it left that she recommended 100 cut, because I don't know that that would be accurate. Ms. Rounds, do you have a comment on that?
Good morning. I think that's correct. I mean, I would recommend that you fully fund all of our positions, because going into our budget, we have 88 positions that are currently unfunded in the governor's proposed budget. So, but I don't think it's wrong to say that if I was going to offer anything, the most I could ever suggest would be 100. And even that is going to be painful and create problems in the department, because what I'm really looking at is 180 positions from our authorized number. So to think that it's going to be 226 plus 88, it's almost 300 positions that will be unfunded in the House budget. It's very difficult to think about.
Okay, so thank you. Representative Wallner, did you I just wanted to make sure that Ms. Round's comments were on the record accurately. So do you have anything to say in response to that?
No, but I just thought that Ms. Rounds was very, very generous when she came forward with that information about the 100 positions, and a very difficult thing for an employee to do. And I appreciated her doing it. And I think this, when you realize that there were already 88 positions and now they're going to be well over 300 positions, I think this is really leaving the department in a very difficult place. And
Representative, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you-
no, that's all I have to say. I just think it's a difficult position to put them in.
Representative Weiler, do you have a comment, question?
Yes, I think you're mischaracterizing the act as if we're rebuilding a destroyed agency. This agency had been given a task that was monumental in growing, and it was something they were unable to achieve. So this is basically removing many of the vacancies and still leaving them vacancies they can fill. So this takes some heat off them trying to fill and create different departments that, you know, we're in a program that they were unable to fill, they were unable to find the places for them. So this is there's no sense in throwing money that cannot be spent. And if we don't even have these people to put on the budget, then why would we put money in? So what we're doing is cleaning up to reality, in my mind. Thank you.
Representative Nordgren.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have trouble comprehending what Representative Weiler just said, but could you explain, I don't remember the number of 3,000. Can you maybe give us a little background on how that number was arrived at? The 3,000 full-time authorized positions?
Okay, I can to a bit. So on the 11th of March, or as of the 11th of March, I received a vacancy report from the department. And based on that vacancy report, they had 507 positions vacant. They were at 2,646 positions filled. In the governor's budget, I believe they were authorized 3,226 positions. The 226 cut is to an extent just a little bit arbitrary, but it takes them from the governor's 3,226 to 3,000. That 3,000, because of the vacancy rates as of the 1st of March, represents an additional hiring opportunity for the department of about 350 people. That 350 people from a 2,600 base represents nearly a 14% increase in personnel above what they had on hand on the 14th of March, or excuse me, the 11th of March. And so given the repeated remarks about there being a workforce shortage, and it doesn't seem to me to be a hard management task to grow their personnel by 14% above what they have today. We're giving them more people to do the job. Now, it isn't as many people as they requested, but to the request that we received yesterday to make sure that we were giving them guidance, I think our guidance in this would be, we're still letting you grow substantially, 14% above what you have on hand, 350 positions. But please prioritize direct health care, because we try to protect those funds. And please prioritize those requirements that you have statutory direction to implement. And as we looked through the budget book and we looked at the federal regulations and federal laws and state laws, there's a whole bunch of legal requirements that the department has. So this would kick it back to their management team, their leadership team, to manage the growth, because it's growth in what they have, to manage their 14% growth, to emphasize the direct support of our New Hampshire patients, and to enhance their ability to execute the laws that they're obligated to follow. So that's the background to the 226 number. It was a number that got us to 3,000, which is an easy number to understand. So yes, ma'am. Quick follow up.
Yes, thank you. I guess I would take issue or stress some concern that part of the problem is the fact that they have had trouble hiring. The last year and a half have been an exceptional time in the country. And I think one of the issues that's developed is the whole issue of hiring and keeping everything functioning properly. So I think for us to look back at this year probably isn't a very reliable base to look at as far as their ability to hire. So I would just make that comment. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And just as another data point, the department was authorized at the end of FY19, 2,916 people. And so this budget would authorize 3,000. That's still an additional 84 people above what they were authorized 2 years ago. So there is some breathing room for an effective management team to make some priorities and to create a plan, I believe. I trust them. Representative Wallner, your hand is up. Do you have a question, or is it?
So the one thing I really dislike about back of the budget reductions, and I have to say that, you know, they've happened in many budgets. It means that the legislature hasn't really come to grips with what it is we don't want the department to do. And I think that's unfair to the department and unfair to it means that we are not doing what we were sent here to do. If there are things that we think the department doesn't need to be doing, then I think we should have the wherewithal to tell them that. And if we had gone through the budget in a more methodical way and looked at each department, each division more carefully, and heard about what it means to reduce staff, what it means to reduce spending in certain areas, then I think we would have been able to point to those areas that we think that the department does not need to be doing. And so I think this is just us not really meeting our responsibilities.
Thank you. I can understand that perspective. And from my perspective, we went through every AU. We looked at every line in the financial statement. Every member of the committee had an opportunity to ask questions and to probe, and that opportunity to ask questions was taken advantage of many times. About a week ago or so, we went through an add back process, and everyone on the committee was encouraged to participate in advancing add backs. And every member that brought forward a recommendation or an idea had an opportunity to explain it and to make a case for the rest of the committee to support it. So while in hindsight, we may not have used the 3.5 weeks as well as you would like, I would nevertheless say that every individual was allowed an opportunity to make the most out of the 3 weeks. There was nothing that we didn't give people an opportunity to talk about. So, so that would be my perspective on that. And your hand is still up. I don't know if that's just because it's up or. Okay. So, Representative Weiler.
I would like to move amendment number 0936.
Is there a second?
Second.
Being moved and seconded. Is there any further conversation? Mr. Clerk, would you take a roll?
In favor of amendment 0936, Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes, Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
No,
Representative Nordgren,
No,
Representative Rogers,
No,
Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 4-3.
Thank you. So then let's move to the back of the budget cut, the money. Can you bring that up?
Yes.
All right. So this was distributed yesterday. So people could think about it overnight. Why is there 30 million in the first year and 20 million in the second year? That was a distribution that I asked Mr. Ripple to put in, and what I thought would be big drivers of those reductions would be the management of the higher lag would be a big contributor. In other words, given that the department still has an opportunity to add 14% more people than they had on staff on the 11th of March, then the timing of those hires could contribute personnel savings that would show up in these dollars. So that's a key part of the theory. Are there any questions or comments about this? Representative Wallner?
basically the same comments I had on the reduction of the staffing. I mean, we went through the budget. We've not given them any direction as to where we think they're doing things that we don't think they should be doing, and how they would cut basically 50 million plus stand to lose a large amount of federal money, maybe as much as another 50 million. I don't think that's wise budgeting at all. I think that, we're just giving up the legislature's authority to make some of these decisions. I mean, we leave everything to the executive branch, and after a while, the legislature will just okay whatever the executive branch decides to do. And I think that leaving these decisions up to them without us taking our responsibility is a mistake.
Thank you. Again, I can understand that perspective. Another perspective on this is that the legislature isn't just accepting what the executive branch gave us. From the governor's budget, we're making a significant change. It's still above what we did in FY21, but it's less than what the governor would project, would have had us do. So we certainly haven't given up our legislative prerogative. There were a couple of HB2 items in there. One, we struck the 1.5 million to do safety infrastructure and senior citizen centers because we didn't think it was a good idea, that it wasn't an effective program. So that was us saying, no, let's not do that. Then We made some other changes in HB2 that are different than what the governor wanted. For example, we changed that lapse date, for example. So I don't think we've given up our prerogative, and I would say that we have given the department guidance because, you know, half of this HB2 is dedicated to saying no reductions shall be made to appropriations in the following area: developmental services, including acquired brain disorder services, and children's in-home support services, the Children's Health Insurance Program, or county programs, including the state share of funding for nursing facilities and other long-term care services. So those items represent the general direction that we support investments in direct health care to put hands on the citizens and patients in New Hampshire that need care and treatment. And that given that they operate in a heavily legislated and regulated environment between the federal government and the state government, they are not suffering from a lack of guidance. They have guidance more than they care to, I'm sure. So I just don't accept fully, although I understand where you're coming from, I don't accept fully the idea that we haven't provided enough guidance. So are there any other questions or comments? So I entertain a motion to adopt 0946.
I'd move that we adopt amendment 0946H to the HB1A.
Second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Representative Bean. Moved and seconded. Mr. Clerk, are you ready to take a roll? Oh, excuse me. Is there any discussion?
You don't like discussion.
Not seeing any discussion.
Can't go with your nails, honey.
You're not on mute, Representative Rogers. I'm just letting you know. Okay, so Mr. Clerk, would you take a roll?
Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes. Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
No.
Representative Nordgren,
No,
Representative Rogers,
No,
Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Chairman, the vote is 4-3.
So that takes us down to two issues. The SYSC and the DHHS. So Mr. Ripple, would you just highlight or bring up the DHHS budget line request? And then if you can, let's just go through the first 19 quickly so that people know what those are. And then we can tee up the issue on 20.
Sure.
And then we don't need to do anything, I don't think, other than until this afternoon on it, but I would like to tee up the information exchange. Do you want to speak to this, or do you want Ms. Rounds to speak to it? However you want to go.
You know, I think I would ask Karen to come in and speak to this. I think she's able to talk.
I am, sorry. So this is a pretty standard process for us. Lines 1 through 19 are all change requests related to financial reporting changes. So they're not programmatic changes. They are changes in we made a mistake in how we budgeted it. So that's what those changes are. And those net about a $200,000 reduction in general funds. And then number 20, you'll see that I put some space between 19 and 20 so that it's specifically called out, is related to New Hampshire Hospital. Joe Caristi spoke about this issue in his presentation for New Hampshire Hospital, and we talked about in that presentation that we would provide a change request for the issue. So that's why it is reflected here. This is because there were enhancements for mental health workers that were voted on just before the governor's budget was finished. They're voted on by governor and council, and those enhancements were approved by governor and council. Because of how late it was in the governor's budget, they had already set the general fund target and there were not additional general funds. So to at least have a total fund budget that was correct and reflect those expenditures, we added them as 100% other funds, agency funds. So this request is to move them to general funds, which is where they properly should be.
Also, is there a last page with some of this detail in written form? Is that where that was, Mr. Ripple?
So each one of these has its own page of backup information.
I'm just focused on number 20 because
Okay.
unless somebody wants to dig into one of the other 19, I just want us to know what we're doing on 20, and then people can ask otherwise.
And so you'll see here that there's no change to any of the expenditure lines. It's only a change to the revenue lines.
Okay, you just said it. I know you did, but just say it one more time. Why are we losing agency funds? Or was that initially just a bookkeeping mistake to begin with?
So those agency funds really didn't exist to begin with, so it's not losing anything. As I mentioned, during the governor's phase, these enhancements for mental health workers were approved by governor and council. It was too late in the governor's process to add additional general funds. There were no other general funds to be had, if you will, in the governor's phase. And so we added this as agency income so that the expenditures were correct. So the total expenditures being 74.4 million and 74.5 million are correct. It's that we were not able to add the general funds. So the correct revenue, the revenue source is incorrect.
Okay, so in the letter that the governor sent subsequent to his budget process, where he listed a few pages of priorities that he'd like to have added back, since this missed the governor's budget phase, did his prioritizations include this line?
Yes, it did.
And then just for completeness sake, Mr. Ripple, if you have that New Hampshire Hospital slide that we've already seen, but it wouldn't hurt to look at it again.
I have the New Hampshire Hospital presentation, but I haven't found the exact slide. So I'll bring it up. This could take a minute though.
All right, Ms. Rounds, do you happen to know which slide we should just go to?
I don't off the top of my head. Hold on. Kevin, it was towards the middle to end of the New Hampshire Hospital slides. So, yeah, keep going. Keep going. Wait list, no. Wait list. Accomplishment. Somewhere in this area, I thought. This, yep, right here, 36.
Okay, so I faintly remember the slide, but enough to know that I've seen it and that I understood it at the time. So are there any, let's do it this way. Are there any requests for information from the committee relative to lines 1 through 19? That was on the previous view.
There an amendment number?
There's no amendment number since these are changes to the appropriations in House Bill 1. I'm just pulling up the, trying to pull up the summary sheet again here so you can all see that.
Thank you.
And there's one other thing that I would point out just to confuse things a little bit. And I mentioned this in an email last night, that the department submitted these 20 items, one packet, and then they also submitted a last item pertaining to, let me see here, Medicaid administration. They submitted this to separately. When we put together the packet, I accidentally added it on to the end. This is not included in the original 20 items. And Karen, I don't know if you want to speak to this one.
In other words, are you saying this is competing to be item 21?
Well, yes, you could consider this item 21. It is not on the summary sheet, but it is a department request.
Yes, so this was something that was pointed out during the Medicaid presentation when we were going line by line, that the transfer to other state agencies, which is the DISH payment to New Hampshire Hospital, seemed kind of high compared to previous years. And you guys were absolutely correct. It was too high. It doesn't match what New Hampshire Hospital is receiving for DISH. So this is just making the adjustment to the, it's all federal to actually represent what will be received.
Okay, so highlight the key line for us, if you would, to see what we're looking at. So because that's in parentheses, it's still a decrease though, right? The 6.5 million.
Yes, it's a decrease to correct what's actually being transferred to New Hampshire Hospital. So that 34.2 million was actually was overstated.
So that has no impact. That change has no impact on general funds.
It does not. It is 100% federal.
And although we would like that extra 6.5 million, we're not eligible. And so this is just getting our budget to represent what we really think is going to happen.
Exactly. And to match what New Hampshire Hospital actually budgeted.
All right. So does the committee have questions on 1 through 19 on item 20? And if we called this item 21, this is a time to get your questions answered so that we can maybe vote this afternoon. Representative Wallner.
Thank you. Karen, I know that the enhancements at New Hampshire Hospital for the mental health workers, were there enhancements at Glencliff also?
There are some long-standing enhancements that have been in place at Glencliff for a long time. I don't know that Glencliff has mental health workers. I think they're mostly nurses, and those have been budgeted for several years.
Thank you. I just wanted to be sure they were budgeted. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, I think we're at the point where we could take a recess. I was saying that we needed to recess until 2 because it was my assumption that we may have some documents coming in from OLS and we wanted to give them maximum time. Mr. Ripple, have you gotten everything from OLS that you've been expecting or wanting?
Yes, we have everything, and I believe the committee has everything. The last items outstanding were the Sununu Center amendments that I sent out last night.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. So, okay. So I would, if we met again at 1 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock, does that cause problems for anyone?
Yes.
Okay, what time do you need to meet, sir?
Well, if I drive up for a face-to-face meeting at noon, and if it goes an hour and then I drive home, I'll be home at 2.
So let's go ahead and recess until 2, and at which time we can take votes on those 21 items that we just looked at. That would buy you a few more minutes if you're not able to join us, sir.
Thank you.
And then, excuse me, and then I would think that at that point, we'd be ready to walk through the Sununu Center documents, and that's when I'd like to turn the chair over to you and let you walk us through that.
Okay.
All right. And if you're not available, are you okay with Representative Wallner maybe stepping in and walking us through that?
Yes, we're co-sponsors.
Okay. Representative Wallner, would you be okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so the committee stands in recess until 2 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's 2 o'clock. We're back from our lunch recess. We have all members. Is Representative Earth there? Oh, there you are, up in the upper left. So this afternoon, we left it to look at the DHHS line items where they were asking for support. Then we have a planned discussion around the Sununu Youth Center and a number of amendments, each of which plays a part in facilitating a close down. We had postponed House Bill 254 vote on Monday because we needed to get the OLS amendment dealing with HB2 amendment, incorporating the 254 language into it, and we'll discuss it today as an HB2. And then I hope that we can then decide what to do with HB 254. At that point, I'm inviting now, and I will invite again, Representative Rogers to walk us through her HB1 proposal related to the family planning lines. And I'll check in with you as we come towards the end of the SYSC, Representative Rogers, to see where you're at on that. Okay, so Mr. Ripple, if you could pull up the line items, the DHHS line items, please.
Sure.
Okay, so there's at least two ways of carving this up. And I think one way is lines 1 through 20 on this sheet, and then treat the hypothetical 21 as a separate issue. Or we could do 1 through 19, then 20, then the hypothetical. So I'm going to get a sense of the committee now on if the committee is interested in considering 1 through 20 all in one piece or not. If you do not want to consider 1 through 20 all in one piece, this is a good time to let me know. I'm not seeing anyone. Okay, so is there any conversation on these 1 through 20? Okay, so I'd entertain a motion that the committee accept lines 1 through 20, the request by sources of funds for transfer by the department.
Did you want to accept 1 through 20 or 1 through 19? Because it's the general fund increase.
I just asked about 1 through 20 and nobody had a problem with doing them all at once. So it is 1 through 20.
Okay, but I think item 20 is the one that would increase general funds by 4.3 million per year.
Okay, so you think we should go ahead and do 1 through 19 separate? That's fine. All right, we can do it that way.
Yes.
So I would entertain a motion to, for us to consider lines 1 through 19 as one unit of transfers.
So
Is there a
moved.
mo- Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, seconded by 2 people. So with it moved and seconded, is there any discussion? I think for the record, this is all routine, normal cleanups and has no real significant impact on our general funds. Okay, so not seeing any further conversation on that. Mr. Clerk, would you take a roll?
Okay, on the motion to accept 1 through 19 on the display before us, Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes, Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
Yes,
Representative Nordgren,
yes,
Representative Rogers,
yes,
Representative Edwards. Representative Edwards,
Yes. Oh, am I muted? No, I'm not muted. Yes,
I didn't hear anything.
yes.
Mr. Chair, that vote is 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that done, let's move on to item number 20, the acute psychiatric services, where the agency funds are decreased and general funds are added to the tune of $4.2 million. We discussed this over lunch or prior to lunch, and we looked at the slide that the New Hampshire Hospital presented to us over a week ago. Is there any discussion on that? Mr. Ripple, just for completeness, do you have that slide from the New Hampshire Hospital on this? It was like slide 34 or something.
It was, I think I closed it out. I can find it again here. Hold on.
Okay, I just thought seeing it might stimulate some conversation. Sorry, I didn't give you a heads up.
That's okay.
Mental health worker enhancement, and slide 36. I was off a couple. So this is to remind you what this is about. The agency funds that were in the budget aren't real, and so they need general funds to fund this. Is there any other discussion? Representative Earth, Representative Weiler? Representative,
Where does the money come from?
this would be a replacement of agency funds that aren't really there, and it would have to be backfilled with general funds.
So this is in addition to what we've done.
It would show up as an addition, wouldn't it, Mr. Ripple?
Yes, it would.
For $9 million.
Yes. Approximately. Over the biennium.
Well, I guess we got it.
Well, and also this looks to be an explicit direct effort to address the emergency room boarding situation,
Yep.
which I think we've all discussed as being a critical thing for us to do. But it is a lot of money.
Well, we just got word we got more.
Or is there any other conversation on this? Okay, so not hearing any. and generally perceiving a reluctant consensus to accept, I would, let's hear a motion on accepting line 20 of the agency budget's adjustment.
I would move to accept line number 20 with the acute psychiatric services transfer of funds from an agency account to the general funds account.
Is there a second?
Second,
It's so moved and seconded. Is there a discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Clerk, would you take a roll?
On the motion to add the 4.2 and 4.8 million. Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes. Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
Yes,
Representative Nordgren,
yes,
Representative Rogers,
yes,
Chairman Edwards.
Yes.
The vote is 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ripple, could you go to the last page then? So remind me what this is. This is a decrease of 6.52 million of transfers that to other state agencies that won't take place. So
That's correct.
this looks like a reduction in our general funds obligations.
It's not a general fund reduction, it's a federal fund reduction, but it would be for the reason that you mentioned, yes.
Okay. So is there a conversation on this? And we this is out of our control anyways, right? I mean, this is just, we're not getting this federal money. So all we're doing is we're getting our books in alignment with the projected reality.
I believe so, yes.
Is the 470010 a way to identify this? Is that the AU?
It is. It's AU 7937.
7937.
So the motion on this would be to update HB1 to reflect 6.512 million less in federal funds availability.
I would make that motion. It also includes that same amount or nearly that same amount the second year as well.
Yes. Is there a second? Seconded. So moved and seconded. Mr. Clerk, would you call a roll?
Okay. On the reduction of 6.5 million less federal funds for each year. Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes. Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
yes,
Representative Nordgren,
yes,
Representative Rogers,
yes,
Chairman Edwards.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 7-0.
Okay, well, thank you. So that's completed. I think we can go into the Sununu Youth Center conversation of the amendments that we have to HB2. I would like to just share a couple of thoughts that I worked out with Mr. Ripple and a little bit with Representative Wallner. With Mr. Ripple, we discussed, how is it possible for us to go through these today and still finish today? And given that we can anticipate there are probably some areas that we need to fix. Like, for example, Representative Wallner noticed that we had a consumer protection advocate and not a child protective advocate in the text. So that's like a typo that needs to be fixed. But there are other things for sure that as we go through these that we'll want to fix. So as I understand it, if we can get agreement on what kind of modification or correction that we want to make to these HB2 items, we can vote on it contingent upon the changes being made by OLS. And then if the changes come through OLS as we've voted for it, then they're agreed upon and they've had our vote. If we send these to OLS, get them back, and they're not what we want, then we still have in the House calendar a work session for Friday that we could use to, as you know, the one last thing to do. I really don't want to do that. I hope we can succeed in getting this done today. So then the other thing I would point out is that there's a few things here that have been proposed that maybe rather than hardwiring with the HB2, that we leave it to the discretion of the commission to handle. So that would mean that we probably want to agree on what the commission looks like earlier in this conversation than later. But that's just a thought. And at this point, Representative Weiler, if you're prepared, sir, I'll turn over the chair position to you.
Well, I'll give it a try and hope Representative Warner helps me out. The first one that seems to try to combine them all is number 0954H. It's about 7 pages. It's the most lengthy one. And what I'll try to do is break it down, what the components are that went into it. And I'll ask Representative Warner to help me out. So it looked to me like 0950 might be the beginning of this. And I believe, Mary Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, this is kind of bringing in 254.
Right.
Okay, so 0950 starts off the way 254 did, and that's the first roughly 2 pages of 0954.
So Representative Weiler, could I just make a,
Yes,
so,
help me out here.
yeah, well, no, you're doing fine. It just, when I had looked at it, I thought it actually might be easier to go through the individual pieces that we had
Okay,
than to use it's strictly your choice. I mean, it's your choice. I just thought
well,
maybe the pieces were easier for people to pull up the pieces and look at them rather than to try to go through
right.
it. It is quite lengthy when you put it all together.
should we begin with 0926?
That's where I started.
Okay, so 0926 is kind of a summation of House Bill 254. And what it does is it talks about not putting so many children in such strict confinement and finding a way to find them better situations so that maybe there's something comes of their confinement and of their correction. And with the exceptions of murderers. And that seems like along the lines of what I think we all have been working toward. Do we want to do these one at a time and do a roll call, or do we just want to kind of do them all together and then make a decision at the end? What's the choice? Mr. Chair? You're muted. Do you have any?
I did. I just went into the backbench role pretty naturally.
Okay.
I think it's really how Representative Wallner and you care to proceed. It feels to me like we might be able to make more progress if we just looked at the components, and if they feel right to voting on them, let's vote on them. If they don't feel right because there's some other pieces that we want to look at, I think maybe we should just try to get our arms around the ones that are kind of fit together. But I don't have that puzzle in my head of how these things fit together.
Okay.
And then Representative Nordgren has her hand up, sir.
Representative Nordgren.
Thank you, both of you, your chairs. So when we met at lunch, Mary Jane and Kathy and I, we put them in the order we thought we should talk about, how it fit together. So
Okay, help me out with the order.
Pardon me?
I haven't had a chance to do that.
Well, okay, so do you want me to go through the order we had, and if you don't like it, that's fine. So the first one we had was, as you said, Mr. Chair, was 926. That's number one.
Okay,
Number two we had was a closure, which is 937.
all right, give me a moment to find that. I got it. That'll be number 2.
The third one we thought was 950, and that's the creation of the commission. And I think we also saw one change there. And so that number is 950, that's number 3.
Okay,
And number 4 is something I think we thought, and that number is 930. We thought this was something, and I think Representative Osborne, no, wrong, Edwards mentioned that some of them needed to just go to the commission for them to deal with rather than us trying to micromanage. So this one, 930, would be one that we thought should be out, but should be part of the commission charge. And this is number 4, 930.
okay,
And then number 5 would be 934. And this is also something we thought the commission should deal with. This is a contract for another state for the provision of secure juvenile correctional services. We thought we did not want to preempt what the commission might decide and put this in an RSA.
this
But
one
we also,
doesn't talk about out of state, right?
right, we also wanted to talk about the 650,000 that's in that, but we can do that when we get to number 5. Number 6 would be 932. And we can get to that and discuss what we thought our changes should be, but that would be number 6, 932.
Okay,
Number 7 would be the job creation bill, 942. And that would be something that we should talk about.
Yep.
And then the last one is number 8. And that's 933.
Good.
And this is something we can talk about when we get to it. I think the date of 2/22 is good because there could be an interim discussion with the commission about what to do with that entire state property. So that's something we should talk about when we talk about number 8, which is 932. So that's me trying to be organized, and I get a little obsessive about that. I'm sorry.
well, we got to get organized somehow. All right, number 1, let's start with that. Any discussions, any wishes to change that? All right, what I'm hoping is that we can put aside and maybe in one vote, make a motion for like 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, or whatever, like however we decide. But this is basically 254. We've had time to look at this. It's the way the last bill that's kind of everything cobbled together starts. Any objection to putting that in a collection?
So I do have a question on the effective dates.
Yep.
Sorry. Ms. O'Neill sent us a really nice document summarizing some questions I had put to her. And in her response, one of the things that I thought may be helpful is she laid out a projected project timeline. And I just am curious if these effective dates conflict with that, or if we want to try to, maybe it's not worth trying to wrestle Ms. O'Neill's projected project timelines with these effective dates. I withdraw my comment. I just talked myself out of it. I thought it might be useful to make sure that we weren't breaking anything by taking her project timelines that may make a lot of sense and then immediately having the wrong effective dates here.
Well, if we empower the commission to do a lot of this time setting and goal setting and contract and so on, that may take care of itself.
Yes, sir. The difference here is this is the incarceration standards, though.
Yeah.
This is a pretty big one where the effective dates, I think, really need to be important. So
you think they need to be earlier than March 22?
I asked the question. I defer to the experienced folks on the committee. If those look like the right effective dates on changing incarceration standards.
Well, this is toward the end of the time we're giving them, say from July 1st to the following March. So at about that time, they should be taken seriously, the change of incarceration, and start to begin the process of getting all the people out of there. So
Yes, sir.
better idea. Anybody else want?
Representative and Wallner have their hands up. I don't know if they.
Representative Wallner?
I think the March date. I think the March date will work.
Yep.
You know, as I thought about this whole group of amendments and this whole issue, is there are a lot of people who have a lot of different opinions about this. And I think what we're doing is we're helping us take the first step. Obviously, the Senate is going to weigh in. There are a lot of people who have a lot of differing opinions and that are going to have their chance to weigh in on it. So I think what we need to do is put it out there. If it seems like the March date is wrong, I think we can work with the Senate around that. The Senate will have their own thoughts, and then we'll come together as a committee of conference and probably come up with a final proposal. So I sort of see it as this is sort of like the first step. We're sort of on first base here.
Thank you. Representative Rogers.
Yeah, the commitment date was passed by Child and Family Law, which is the policy committee, and I think that they did a lot of work on that. So I believe that we should trust the policy committee on what they did on this and not second guess them.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's nothing further on this 0926H, we'll put it in a queue to perhaps be voted on in one vote. And we move on to 0937H. This is the closure and the transfers. Close for incarceration, July 1st, 2022. That's what we talked about and what we wanted. And then the fiscal committee of the general court shall have authority to accept funds from any source to approve the transfer of funds and so on and so forth. Notwithstanding other provisions, neither the Department of Health, Human Services or any other administration, agency, or authority, a member of the executive branch of government shall expend or commit the expenditures of any funds from any source to directly or indirectly fund the Sonoma Youth Centers or a successor state facility. Kind of make that clear at that closing date. Anybody have anything to add on that? If not, I'll place it in the queue for collective vote. Okay, then the next one, I think I've got it. Yeah, I've got them in the right order. 0950H, very critical. This is the commission. And we talked about having a correction here. The director of the Office of Consumer Advocate. You're going to change that to what? Child advocate?
Yes, I think the consumer advocate would be really surprised to hear that he's on. So yeah, so I think we met child advocate there.
All right, we'll make that revision subject to change. This one. On number 3, 09, subject to change. Then I see if I got something to highlight it. There it is.
I will say on this one, Chairman Weiler, there are a lot of different opinions. I've received 2 or 3 emails this morning about differing commission members. I haven't really had a chance to really think all of that through. What we have here before us is a proposal, but I think it's another one of those things. I think that over the next several weeks, we can probably work on trying to flesh out who might be appropriate. I have not had the time to go through all the different suggestions. So
Yeah, and we see that they have short time to work. We want to report by September 30th of this year. They may not be appointed until July, so they don't have much time. Every summer. Chairman Edwards.
So I have just 2 comments on this. One of them is similar. We call out Waypoint by name, and we call out the Disability Rights Center by name. And I'm not sure exactly what the Disability Rights Center is, but when we call out Waypoint, I think Waypoint is one of several organizations that are in this space, and I would, although they may end up having somebody designated from Waypoint, I don't think calling out one organization by name, unless it's a state agency, is just good policy when we're setting up a commission. So I would like to find a more generic way to reference that representative of Waypoint, and maybe of the Disability Rights Center. I have less of an opinion on that. My second point is that I think we really need to have sort of the neighborhood family support group, whoever community this might go into, these may go into. I think we need to have, I don't know, for the lack of a better word, you know, the mom's view of her raising her family where these kids may be transferred to. I'd like a public safety advocate to be on the commission, because if we get a bunch of people who all sort of think the same, that we have to take care of these kids, and we don't have the other point of view that, well, we got to also take care of the safety of the community, I just think we may miss a vital representation. So, but that's my thought. But to Representative Wallner's point, I'm okay with us somehow communicating to the Senate that this commission membership would need some work.
Okay. You can't offhand think of a group that would serve the purpose of the public safety advocate.
I can't. I think, the members of the committee may know people or know a way to say that. I just don't. This is not my subject matter area.
But you are opposed to pointing out by name Waypoint and disability rights.
Well, more Waypoint, because I'm not really sure what the Disability Rights Center is. If that's a government entity, part of the state, then I think it's fine. If they're not, then I think it's worth a discussion to make sure that we're not picking our jury. I don't know.
Here's my thought. The people that came forward and were willing to help were Mike Skibby, Disability Rights Center, and of course, John DeJoy from Waypoint, willing to take an active role. And so that's the kind of person that if you put it on this commission would stay active and would have a good background. And obviously they had enough background to come forward to talk to us. So I think that's why, their names ended up in here, because they had already wanted to be involved. And, if we put somebody on that is, and this is a short time, I've had things like this before where we put together a commission and we waited for some group to appoint someone to the commission, and we waited and waited. And now we only have a short couple of months here to come up with a decision. And if we're waiting a month and a half for somebody to appoint something from a group. The rest of them are sitting around wondering when they're gonna call a meeting, so it makes it,
Yes, sir. I'm fully prepared to defer to your judgment. But that doesn't keep me from having a stray opinion. Sorry. I'll
all
let you
right,
go.
but, you know, I think that if we want them to hit the ground running, I can depend on two people, John DeJoy and Mike Skibby, to jump right in. Unless have, you know, less problem, and sometimes it's the Senate that holds us up with appointing people, because it doesn't seem any of them want to be interested. And, you know, even the director, the Office of Child Advocate, well, that's a state employee, so they ought to be able to come right over there. Director of Division for Children, Youth and Families. Yep, so if we want people to hit the ground running, and as soon as this passes, then I think if we left those two people in, it would happen. We'll try to talk to the Senate in the meantime about, I agree with you, there's going to be a lot of objection to having 15-year-old boys next to my 12-year-old daughter or something, you know. You just see that big objection, but maybe the Senate will have somebody, or something will occur to us in the meantime. So that's number 3 that may go in the queue without objection. Representative Rogers, something to add.
Yeah, as far as a public safety advocate or somebody there to speak to that, if this site is, or there are sites that are going into the community, they will obviously deal with the local people, and there will be hearings as far as various locations in the community. And at that point, the local police will be involved as far as where they're cited and people there. So I think that each of the localities will have their public safety advocates involved at that time. So I think that that's something that the commission will be dealing with.
And probably also the local planning board, so.
Correct.
We know, okay, so without objection, I'll put that in the collective queue for now, number 3. Move on to number 4, which is 0930. This is the contractors currently providing residential treatment for children. The contractor shall comply and so on. And the DCYF shall negotiate contracts for residential placement of minors in New Hampshire. We're eligible for commitment, and so it empowers them, DCYF, to begin working on, excuse me, getting additional places outside of Sununu Youth Center, which is kind of compulsory after you accept 254 on the first part of this. Any comments on that part, Representative Nord?
I would like to see, I think this part could come out and
Leave this to the commission?
lead. I think this is, yeah, this is the kind of thing the commission, and certainly DCYF has the authority already, I believe, probably to negotiate contracts. So I would personally leave this piece out.
Anyone object to leaving this out? Hold your hand or speak up. If without objection, we will take this out.
Can I just ask a question about that?
Representative Earth.
I'm fine with it coming out. I'm just wondering though, would DCYF, would at least somebody from this or some part of the state be responsible for doing that, what this refers to DCYF doing, as opposed to somebody outside of the state like the commission?
You mean if we don't have something in directing them to do something, you don't think they will?
I'm just asking you, if you remove this piece,
Yeah.
are we still sure that the state will be negotiating contracts, whether, as opposed to the commission negotiating contracts?
All right,
would-
want it left in?
No, I'm just asking the question. I don't know the answer.
Okay, Representative Nordgren, do you have the answer?
Well, I'm not sure, but I would think that it would be the purview of the commission to make recommendations to the department. I don't believe the commission would negotiate with contractors. So I don't think this exact wording would be what's put in the commission's charge. But I do think that it'd be better not to have it in this package the way it is.
Okay. So unless Representative Earth wants me to leave it in, I'll take it out.
No, I'll go with the judgment of the people that have been here longer than I have.
Representative Edwards.
Yes, sir. This is just a process issue, but as we go through and we drop these things that we're considering and saying the commission can do it, I just hope we're keeping track of, so that in the commission's section, we're adding responsibilities so that they know they have to do it.
Okay. We'll make sure we have that language in there. We'll review that once more before we do the final. Okay, number 5, I guess I had a note on this. Again, secure juvenile corrective service contract. And again, it comes down to the department. And compliance, the prison, this is Prisoner Rape Elimination Act.
And I think this one talks about sending some of the children out of state. And I think that it's certainly not a good idea to send children out of state. It's really kind of it's bad for children and bad for their families. But also I think that we have to let the commission try to come to some decisions about what kinds of facilities there are going to be available in New Hampshire. So I would leave this piece out. This doesn't seem like it really belongs in this. Sorry, my dog doesn't like it either.
Okay, Representative Earth.
My concern if we take it out is we're setting a date certain for closing the facility. And if by that time they've not found a place to put those people that cannot be placed in the community, and the only alternative is out of state, isn't this essentially saying that option is available to you?
I guess, speak for Representative Wallman. We don't want to make people think that's the way we start out immediately, but within 6 or 8 months, maybe somebody will have some alternative that they will find an abandoned jail or abandoned something that would work. They could make clear enough to fulfill this requirement.
Okay.
So we will hopefully have time next session, if these things don't happen, start putting more legislation in. So if
Could I just speak for a minute, a little bit
Yes.
about, down at the bottom though, we did have an appropriation here of $650,000.
Right.
And I think no matter what, we're going to need those pieces of funding, that piece of funding to help with finding appropriate places for these children. And you'll see the next piece that we're going to do in this series of amendments is the contingency fund. So I would move, when we get to the contingency fund, that we move the 650 to the contingency, so the department has the funding it's going to need for places for these children, whether it's no matter how they decide to deal with those children.
I didn't think we had money in this number 5.
It's right down at the bottom. On line
Warrant. Okay, there it is. There it is. I see it now. All right, so we can add that to the next one. I think it's needed. All right, with that in mind, anybody object to leaving this for the commission, moving the 650 into the next one? So that one's out with the money moving into this number 6, which is 0932. So we add 650,000. I guess when we get through, we'll have to wait for redrafting by OLS. Unless we want to accept what we've done with the thought in mind, but I don't suppose that's the correct way to do it. So number 6 is the appropriation. Go ahead.
So Kevin, I did rewrite some words, didn't I? To add the 650, to bring the 650 forward to the contingency plan.
Yes, let me find that.
So I added to the 1.4 million, I added the 650 to bring it up to 2,050,000. And it can be used for related activity. These contingency funds may be used to contract amendments, employee retraining and relocation costs, and other expenses as necessary. I think the department would know which expenses they're going to need funding to do. And then the funding should not lapse until June 30 of 23.
Okay. So that would take care of 6. Anything else in number 6? Anybody else? Representative Burke?
Well, just going back to 934, that particular paragraph about the money, it makes specific reference to RSA 169-B:15-C. Is that, and basically expended to accomplish the purposes of that RSA. Now, I've not looked at that RSA, but might it be relevant that that be included in what Representative Wallner just suggested?
Good suggestion. Okay. RSA 169.
RSA.
I'm sorry.
15. C. Okay.
Right.
You get that, Mr. Ripple?
I'm bringing it up. I do have that reference. Yes, I'm just bringing up
That part of the law.
Representative Burke mentioned. So would you want that statutory reference for the entire 2+ million that would be in the other amendment?
This is just for the 650. The other amendment, relocation and training and this other stuff that doesn't have a reference to an RSA.
Okay.
This would be a separate sentence like that. Okay,
So I'm trying to look that up
good.
and I can find 15 and 15A and 15B, but I don't see a 15C.
I guess this would create it. What is the rest of 169 about?
No detention at jail is 169-B:15. Following arraignment, no minor shall be detained in any facility where adults charged. Actually, this I think is important because one of the points that I've heard expressed is that these folks must not be put into or not be jailed with adults.
Right.
And that's what this is related to.
Yep.
Inspection of facilities is A, excuse me. And B is notification of right to request records. And I don't see a C unless these documents that we're going through now are going to specify a C.
This would create one, I guess.
I'll just draw your attention to that.
Yes, there is one of the sections. I'm not sure which one, but I'm looking at the omnibus amendment now. It does create 169-B:15C.
So there's probably more to this language than just this one line.
As long as it's included in the where Representative Wallner said we should move the money to and kept with that money, I think is probably the important piece, right?
I think so. All right, so the omnibus one had that same thing created. What is? how
Yes.
much to it?
Representative Weiler,
Yes,
that is in the out-of-state placement part. It's just needed for the out-of-state placement. So that RSA would have been created. It's not really needed.
so that's only for out of state.
Right, so that's not needed. It would be, if we had the out-of-state placement, it would be needed, but with this, it's not. It's creating a new RSA.
Right, so if we can't find any other place for these.
We don't need that RSA.
You still don't need that RSA?
We don't. It would be a new one that would be created under the out-of-state placement section we're not putting in.
So you
All right,
probably don't want either. 650,000.
There's a legal opinion, so without objection, we'll leave out that. rough one.
Okay, I just
Put
found
the
out,
money in.
someone called me and told me that it worked on writing it.
Very good. All right. So we'll take the 650,000 without the RSA language and place it in number 6, which is 0932H.
Well, I don't think you need the money there because the money was for the out-of-state placement.
But they will still need to,
Well, even if there's an in-state placement, they need the money.
right, they'll still need the money for placing those children, for finding placement for those children. I think that the objection really has been to designating out of state as like the first thing we do. The department and will still need to find placements for those children. Well, I mean, the commission will probably have a lot of experts come in. We have set aside $100,000 for them to hire an expert to come in and a consultant to come in and help them with some of those decisions. So
Okay.
I think they'll still need, and this is not, we have not given them very much money to do this.
Okay, but nonetheless, are you then tying the $650,000 at least to the placement as opposed to just a generic amount of money added into the next section?
Contract amendments, which could be amendments with, would be amendments with existing providers. I think other expenses as necessary. And that's the way I wrote it. That might not be the legal. That would certainly give the department the flexibility to do what they needed to do.
Well, I'm just trying to understand what you're saying here. I think this number 34, as you've explained it to me, is related to the placement of the children or the young adults that can't be placed in the community. And all I'm asking is, and so if that's true, then this money seems to be associated with that desire, whether it's in-state or out-of-state. And if we're then going to move this money to a different place, shouldn't it go along with the notion of placement? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Representative Waller, is that the way you wrote the language?
Well, I moved the money. I just moved the $650,000 into the contingency plan, into the contingency amendment, so that the department would have that money available.
I guess my concern is they come back and say they need money to put them into other placements as opposed to.
What should we add that in the list of things?
Yeah, that should be added as an amendment, because otherwise it could all get used up in placement and training and, oh gee, we didn't know we need to put money aside for that. You know, so, yeah, I think we'd feel more comfortable if this was dedicated to the placement of the encouragement.
So Representative Urfa, or maybe Kevin, could we add that in the list? Would that be the right place? Or should we take the 650 and have a separate sentence and say for placement?
Let's see. I think you could add it to the language here. That's on screen here.
So add it to the list. And what would we say? Representative Urf,
650,000 shall be given to this organization, the DCYF, to provide for secure confinement for the few ones who are not entitled to be moved to a lesser confinement.
And I'm okay with that kind of language just being another clause of the sentence that you're trying to do, Representative Wallner. Relocation costs and placement of those that cannot be placed in the community.
Yeah, that's a good line. Yep, and 650,000 for the placement of those who cannot be placed in the community, in a community setting.
Okay, so in that case, I would say that of the 2.05 million, 650,000 shall be used for the purposes of secure confinement for those who cannot be placed in community settings. Is that correct?
Let's see where the 2.05 is. Oh, yeah, okay, it's excluded in the 1.4, all right. Yes, that's good.
Okay.
Okay. So number 6 is going to have that language added. It's also employee retraining and relocation costs. Described in action, something, an alternative prison capacity. Where is that described? Section something. Do we need to write something in there? Or is that somewhere else in these pages? Because number 7 has similar language. 0942H. We got a 500,000 in there.
Maybe we should take out employee training and relocation costs. I mean, it's just in the list of things that are allowed, but in
Yeah.
7, we really specify that it's to be used for that.
Yep. So we have a lot of things in number 6 with 3932. Contract amendments, employee retraining, relocation. So number 7 is kind of repetitive unless we had to add that money back in.
So did you want me to remove the retraining and relocation costs from the new number 6, or did you want to change number 7 instead?
I'm wondering if 7 is duplicative of 6.
Okay. Let me bring up number 7 here.
I think 7 does more than just provide the funding for the training, and I think it also talks about it talks about filling positions in existing state agencies with priority given to state employees displaced. I mean, I think this is really important. We have a valuable workforce at the Sununu Center who certainly have a lot of skills, and I think we want to be sure that they get get the first ability to go into jobs that are available within the department or within other agencies of the state.
Could we combine 5, 6, and 7?
Why don't we do this? Why don't we take out of 6, since it seems like it is repetitive? Why don't we take out of the list in 6? Why don't we take out employee retraining and relocation costs? Just take it out of there and address that in 7.
Okay. Take it out of 6 and leave it in 7.
Does that make sense?
And put in the 650,000 into 6.
Yeah, put the 650,000 into 6, and then do the employees will be a separate amendment.
Makes more sense.
Complicated enough for you, Kevin?
Okay, so I think I've got it. So just so I'm clear, the language we're looking at now, the new number 6, employee retraining and relocation costs would be removed. Do you want to include? So is literally all that's left for contract amendments as well as the $650,000 carve out for placements for those who can't be placed in the community?
Yeah, we want those included.
Okay, so does the
And
2.05 million still remain in the new number 6?
Yes,
It does, okay, okay.
So I have a question.
Okay,
When we say retraining and relocation, I'm curious about the word relocation. In the corporate world, that means that we would pay all the moving expenses related to moving from one part of the state to the next. And that can be $80,000-$90,000 per household. Are we meaning to move somebody from Manchester up to Coos County if that's the relocation?
I did not write those words, so I don't know if Representative Weiler has an opinion on that. I think there might be probably better words.
If we're not sure,
It might be possible that if our workforce at Glencliff is really in as bad as, if they need people up there, that might be something you might really want to think about.
well, if we make it partial relocation costs, then it's a little more negotiable.
so you want to help them pay for some of their expenses of selling their house, moving their household goods, arriving at the new location with closing fees. I mean, that's the kind of thing that goes into a relo.
Yeah,
I would recommend deleting the word relocation myself, because that I think it's ill-defined and it could be tremendously expensive.
I had a neighbor that had relocation costs. He moved a wood pile. And I thought, I can't believe it, but somebody else was paying for it.
So unless we have a good definition for that, I would ask that we delete it.
All right, any objection to deleting relocation?
Could we leave in something like job training and incentives to fill jobs which exist within state government?
Yeah, we could change it to incentives,
And that,
and it's a little more negotiable.
at one point, I remember years ago, and I can't remember in one previous try, we talked about severance pay packages, and that was all. That's not included here, but we've had a lot of discussion with the kinds of things it would cost that we should be providing for employees when we're closing this facility.
Well, retraining is a biggie.
Training's good.
See if it's 6 months to do it, and we're paying them while they're retraining. And that could be expensive to give them the regular pay for 6 months while they're going to school. That might even be more than moving costs. And then maybe incentives wouldn't hurt so much, but if it's ill-defined, are they going to sue us? You know, the union's always ready to do that. So, anybody object to their taking out relocation? That's going to be a sticking point. All right, without objection, let's take out relocation.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when this guy moved the wood pile. And he had a bunch of furniture that he almost got rid of after he moved, because the house he moved into wasn't as big as the one he moved out of. So,
Does it also make, if 932 is still as it is here, minus the 6, whatever, refers to sections. Are we gonna write those sections or,
Yeah, we're gonna rewrite them a little bit, 6 and 7.
okay, because it talks about contract amendments described in section and alternative prison capacity described in section.
Yes.
So my understanding was that this new wording that I'm sharing on the screen was going to replace 932. Is that not the case?
In its entirety?
Sure.
Oh, okay. That makes it easy.
Yeah, 930, yes, 932.
Will be replaced in its entirety by the language I'm sharing right now.
Right.
Minus relocation costs.
Minus,
Minus
So-
relocation.
minus relocation costs, minus employee retraining still?
No, we leave that in.
Okay, so only minus relocation costs with the carve out for $650,000 previously discussed.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
Representative Morgan has her hand up, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Representative Nordgren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did we want to add the word incentives in there, or is that just adding a complication? That's in the amendment 942.
Yeah, well, he's left in other expenses as necessary, which would
Okay,
to cover that.
that probably covers it. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope. Depending on who the people are making the deal. So we changed 6 and 7. We took the language there.
I think you gave the same change in 7 to take relocation out.
Yeah,
Yep. Okay. So
and
we,
that's where you can leave the word incentive there.
is it there?
Yes.
Line 4.
Okay. Yeah, it's there. Okay, good. That should be good. Anything else? Are we accepting 7 and 6 as rewritten? 6 as rewritten and 7? Any objection to 7?
Well, with this amendment, if 7 is 942,
Yes.
did you already remove the word relocation in line 1? And are we correcting the typo in the year of line 3?
Not yet.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, move.
All right, job retraining, relocation, and incentives. Yeah, we should take relocation out of line 1.
You could say unrelated incentives.
Yeah. Yeah, related, change it to related.
okay, so the changes to this one, the removal of relocation in 2 places and fixing the typo in the fiscal year on line 3.
Yeah,
and then I'm just curious if this is, if the intent of this is actually necessary, because a prioritization of an employee being moved to another position within the state, if their position's being phased out, I would assume is already in law somewhere, because that's just the rational human resource thing to do. And so I kind of wonder if this is necessary beyond the money component of it. Again, it's not my area though. I don't have.
yeah, I don't have any experience with that either.
Maybe it's just belt and suspenders. Maybe it's just, make sure that it's understood that these employees will be able to be prioritized.
Well, personally, I'm fine with saying it twice, but some people aren't. If this is already in RSA somewhere, and if it's redundant,
It's
So,
not RSA.
I don't have an objection.
so fiscal year ending June 30th, 20. Oh, I see it. Yeah, it doesn't have the zeros. Okay. Yeah, that was the date we wanted. 2022. Okay. We all set with 7? So number 8 is 0933. disposal of property. So where they take possession. And they can consult with Manchester for the sale. Okay. It doesn't forbid them from repurposing it to something else.
Well, it does say consistent with the expressed city interest. Does that mean the city could say, we want it?
As long as they want to pay enough, they want to pay a decent price.
Yeah, so earlier when we talked about an intent statement, I floated the idea of saying that the legislative intent was to have this property repurposed to tax production uses. And I would hate to see this beautiful campus. It could be a wonderful software development center like they have out in Silicon Valley of California. I'd hate to see that turned into Manchester's new city hall. I think that's valuable a property to not get a highly productive use out of it. I'm uncomfortable with this disposal approach.
Well, it says for the best interest of the states. So express city interest and the interest of the state. Should you say the best interest of the state, which would mean the highest price? A suggestion for the wording, Representative Nord.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think when we've been talking all afternoon about the commission and not giving them direction on how to do things, but letting them go through their process, I also worried about the disposal word in this section. Because that might not be to the benefit of the state, and I worry that we shouldn't have that in an RSA.
What word would you use?
I would have them take possession, but I would not have them dispose.
Well, it's kind of a neutral word, like have we had a disposition motion on this bill? In other words, have we disposed of it? Have we find a way to finish with it? So,
Well, it depends what you mean by the word dispose. Does it mean we give it to another department in the state? Or we need to just sell it to an outside interest? I guess I just worry about binding the state and the commission into doing something that might need more discussion.
would you prefer a word like transfer?
Do we have to say anything? Can we just delete the language and not decide that today?
Right, I think we should just end this paragraph where it said South River Road, Manchester, New Hampshire, and leave the rest of it out.
And leave it up to administrative services.
Yeah, the administrative services shall take possession and then not direct them what to do.
Yeah, they'll be able to figure it out. Although Lou D'Alessandro will probably add back in having these.
I know, I think Lou's gonna probably be messing with this quite a bit.
All right. Any support for that? Taking out all this stuff after notwithstanding.
I like her suggestion.
Okay, if nobody puts a hand up, Representative Wallner.
No, I'm fine with what Sharon said, what Representative Norgren said.
Okay. Or you can still have your hand up, Representative Wallner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, so if nobody objects, that's where this thing will end. Right where it's got now notwithstanding. All right, so we've been through the sections that kind of mirror what's in the omnibus bill, leaving out some other parts that are more objectionable by some of the folks. And Mr. Ripple, what do you recommend? Should we make a motion on the parts that we have approved, or just leave it in your hands to write another omnibus amendment?
So here's what I'm thinking. I'll briefly summarize my understanding of what you want out of these.
Okay,
I think it would probably be best if I bring these to OLS, they redraft, whether in the form of individual amendments or an omnibus amendment, I'm not sure. But then I'll send that back out to you. And I think I had originally suggested Friday, but perhaps tomorrow, or the chair can weigh in on what date is best. The division should come back and then vote on the revised amendments. I think that's the best approach. I had originally suggested Friday, but I didn't realize that it was so early in the week. I thought it was Wednesday or Thursday. So you do have a work session scheduled for tomorrow at 9:30, and you could use that for this purpose if you wanted to.
Representative Edwards, what's your desire? But he might have stepped away. All right.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I just,
Okay.
I've been muting myself so that I don't, so I can resist the temptation, to just burst in. So what I think we maybe ought to do is to vote on the one independent section that represents moving 254 over into HB2. Go ahead and vote on that now.
Okay.
And then if that's done, then the decision to maybe retain HB 254 gets to be clear. If we took those two steps today, and then we deferred the rest of this work to what Mr. Ripple suggested, I think we'd have more locked down a little bit earlier.
All right, so this would be
That's amendment 0937. I'll bring
HB 209. What we had for the first part, I thought was 0926.
You're right. I'm sorry. It's 0926.
All right,
You want to pull it up just so, again, we're looking at it?
Yes.
So if you would scroll down, I'd be willing to make a motion that we accept amendment 0926. I just want to verify that this is, yes, okay, that's enough.
okay, Representative Edwards moves amendment 0926. Is there a second?
Second.
Can I put you down as a second?
Second, Nordgren here.
Nordgren seconds. Thank you. Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll for adopting amendment 0926 to HB2. Representative Edwards,
Yes,
Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes, Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
Yes,
Representative Nordgren,
Yes,
Representative Rogers.
yes,
And the vote is 7-0. Okay, so we're done with that portion for now, Mr. Chairman, and we had some for Mr. Ripple, and you can tell him when we'll come to the vote on the rest of it.
so Mr. Ripple, thank you, Representative Weiler and Representative Wallner, Nordgren, and et al. For taking the lead on that. But so, Mr. Ripple, okay, if there, it felt to me like you had a lot of notes and maybe a couple of them might be a little confusing. does it feel to you like you really need all morning and maybe even some afternoon to get OLS working on it? Is it possible to come back tomorrow with it?
I think you
Afternoon?
could, I think you could come back tomorrow, if I got a little clarification on a couple of the items today.
Can I float another idea? Could we like vote out an HB2 placeholder and put it in there to where we could work for several days without worrying that we get this language exactly the way we want? And then the placeholder, if it gets sucked in and over to the Senate, then we would have independent separate language to hand them to fill in the blank. We may not be able to do that.
So are you suggesting incorporating what's been discussed today as is, but working at some later date to come up with revised language?
That seems like an option to consider. Just because I do want to be able to declare we're done at some point. And I don't want the fact that we need to declare ourselves as being done to pressure us to making, you know, an ill thought out decision. So I'm looking for alternatives to buy us a little time without killing our deadline. Representative Wallner, do you have an idea there?
Yeah, I mean, we've got 254 has passed. Okay, so that the first part of it. Then the next part, I think we've just got a few, just a few changes. I don't think it's like we have rewritten the whole, the whole RSA. I mean, I don't think we've rewritten the whole statute here. I think we've just got a few changes, and it seems like coming back tomorrow morning, I think OLS could probably get this ready for us. I certainly wouldn't, I mean, I think the House, I think it's good for the House to have a position when we get over to the Senate. We can be flexible. I mean, obviously, the Senate is going to get a lot more information. People are going to come in, people are going to like it, people aren't going to like it. People will want to be on the commission, people will want off the commission. I mean, you know what's going to happen. Our emails will fill tonight, but I think we need something, and I think we did the work this afternoon.
Okay.
So that's just my suggestion.
I love your suggestion, and I'll put away my concern knowing that Mr. Ripple can work with OLS on the remaining pieces to clean it up. And then, but because OLS will need the morning, we probably need to get back together in the afternoon. Do people have conflicts, or do they have their afternoons free? Because if their afternoons are free, I'd like to, go ahead, and we have to call the meeting into session at 9:30, and then we can recess till 1 or something like that if no one has a schedule conflict.
I had morning conflicts at 8 o'clock with the governor, and then 9:15 probably with the speaker. So
How about 1 o'clock? Is the afternoon clear for you, sir?
it is 1 o'clock's good.
Representative Nordgren?
Well, I was just gonna ask Kevin how long it would take OLS to draft this. I'm not sure it would take that long. I
don't think it would take that long. I think if you wanted to meet at 9:30 tomorrow, we would have everything ready by then easily. If there are other reasons to not meet in the morning, like schedule conflicts, that's another story, but we could have it by 9:30.
So we're going to have to start this meeting at 9:30. That's what's in the calendar. We'll start it at 9:30. If OLS can support us that quick, great. We'll knock it out. If OLS isn't ready, then we'll have to recess until a reasonable time in the afternoon.
All right, I've got this 207. I'm not sure what that is, 9:15 and 207, but I'll find out when I get there. Maybe I'll be there by 9:30. Be up in Concord on my computer up there.
And really the only thing I needed clarification on was I wasn't sure there was any resolution about taking out Waypoint by name or the Disabilities Rights Center by name?
I think Representative Weiler made a convincing case to leave them in because
Okay.
they're leaning forward in the foxhole and they're ready to engage.
No
So,
getting us appointments.
And will all
so
blanks be removed?
say again.
Will all blanks be removed?
Well, those will be taken care of when House Bill 2 is strung together. So they'll reference the appropriate sections.
Okay, thank you.
So in that waypoint area, Mr. Ripple, would,
Yeah.
would you add another line? Never mind. I'm going to leave that alone. All right. Well, great. So we have a game plan. You're going to try to get it cleaned up, get it through OLS. We'll meet at 9:30. If it's ready, we can talk about it. And then if it's not, we can recess for the amount of time that's needed. Representative Nordgren?
So do you anticipate a full vote on the budget we've prepared tomorrow, or what's the end game for finishing our work?
Well, as I think the last thing that we really need to vote on is HB 254. As I talked to Mr. Ripple, we don't need to vote on an entire budget because with all the components that we have voted on, he can piece it together, and that's what our budget proposal is. Did I hear you right, Mr. Ripple?
That's correct. You voted on all the individual components with the exception of the Sununu Center and with the exception of the House Bill 1 side of the Sununu Center, which is what I was going to bring up next.
Why don't you bring up House Bill 1 side of the issue now?
Okay. Now, my understanding was that along with the closure of the Sununu Center and the adoption of the House Bill 2 amendments, you would also be zeroing out the budget for the Sununu Center in 23, and that's what this represents.
So move.
Second,
All right. Is there further discussion? Not seeing any further discussion. Mr. Chair, would you, or Mr. Clerk, would you call a roll?
Representative Earth,
yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes. Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
Yes,
Representative Nordgren,
Yes,
Representative Rogers,
yes,
Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 7-0.
All right, thank you. Okay. So I think we're ready to take up HB 254. And given what we just did with House Bill 2, I think the idea here is that we probably ought to retain 254 so that we have a vehicle to react with later should we need one. Okay, so with that, I would accept a motion to retain House Bill 254 in finance.
Can I just ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So we voted, didn't we vote to OTP it yesterday? So can we now come back and just say we're changing our mind and we're going to retain it?
No, we didn't vote OTP on 254, I don't think.
Oh, we
We
didn't?
voted on 600.
Okay, but I make a motion to retain HB 254.
Is there a
I'll second it.
seconded? It's first and seconded. Are there any further discussion? Representative Nordgren, are you okay? You were messing with your monitor. Did you have, okay, you're okay. So there not being any further discussion, would the clerk call a roll on the motion to retain House Bill 254?
Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes. Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
Yes,
Representative Nordgren,
yes,
Representative Rogers,
yes,
Representative Edwards,
Yes,
vote is 7-0.
okay, good. Okay, so other than the Sununu Center House Bill 2, we're done? Is that right, Mr. Ripple?
That is correct.
So everyone on the committee, recheck your notes, because a couple times I thought I had a complete list and people have shaken me and corrected me. So Representative Urf,
Didn't you say you were doing something with Representative Rogers?
Oh,
I am. I'm just trying to tie this up. Okay, so Representative Wallner, did you have?
yes. I just wondered if I could ask Kevin to remind me, what kind of documents will the division be getting? And when do you think we might be able to get them about all of our decisions? What the piece that we will probably take to finance, the full finance committee?
well, as usual, at the full finance exec session, the chair of each division will be presenting two things, what we call the detailed change sheet, showing all of the differences between the governor's recommended budget and the division's recommended budget in House Bill 1. And then also a packet of House Bill 2 amendments. That typically is provided to the chair in advance so they can work their way through those documents and get ready for the presentation. I don't know that the full committee typically receives it before the day of the exec, though.
so,
Go ahead, follow up. Did you have one? Representative Nordgren?
so we wouldn't be able to receive the documents and copy them and have them in front of us as we listen to the presentations from each division.
They would be available the day of the exec session. Is the question, will you get hard copies?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Probably not.
okay,
Are we talking about basically 2 sheets of paper though? We're
No.
talking about,
Dozens.
we're talking about a lot of paper.
The detailed change sheet is typically at least a couple of pages long. And the House Bill 2 amendment packet will contain the 10 or so amendments that you passed previously, as well as the Sununu Center amendments.
Plus all the other divisions, when we get together with them.
Yes, everything for the other divisions too.
so, and that's the standard way of working historically.
Yes.
Representative Wallner?
I guess this is a request of you, Chairman Edwards. I wondered if what Kevin just said was that you will receive the detailed change report before we go into the exec session. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to share it with the other members of the division so that we have it in front of us as we're, and maybe have it in front of us a night before so we can kind of remember what all the things that we did.
Right.
But
Well,
that's obviously a chairman's decision.
I would like to say that by now, I hope you think that I'm fairly transparent and I want to get the information out earlier rather than later. And I'm predisposed to doing that. There's a historical reason that seems to not be the way it's done. So I'd like to learn why that is so that I know what decision I'm making, but I'm generally predisposed to sharing what I know. So will you take that as an answer for now?
Yes, and to tell you the truth, I didn't even remember that we didn't share them in the past. That only the chair of the division had it. I didn't realize that.
Representative Weiler's waving. Yes, sir.
Generally, we'll get, however many pages, it'll be like a paragraph or two. Janet will prepare. It'll be Division 1, blah, 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 Division 2, blah, blah, blah. And it'll show the vote from the division and the recommendation from the division. And it'll have, a paragraph of what each amendment's about. So generally, that's what everybody sees. If you need more detail, it's up what the chairman wants to provide you, but generally that's what we all see, especially because it's going to be a huge stack. And so it'll still go on for 3 or 4 pages with the number of amendments we've got in each division. So the 3 or 4 pages with a paragraph probably for each, what each amendment's about. I think Janet does that. So, yeah, we'll still get that. Everybody will see it in their place.
Okay. All right, so I think we can go to the next topic. Representative Rogers put a lot of work into preparing to talk to us about her HB1 proposal related to family planning. And I would like to offer her an opportunity to share with us what she has come to want to propose. Representative Rogers?
As I said to you earlier in an email, I think we've moved on from there. It's clear to me how you and the majority of the division feels about this, so I don't want to waste anyone's time.
All right, it's your call on whether you present your proposal or not. I would just say that our feelings don't matter in this case. It's the proper polite thing to do to give you an opportunity to present all the work that you did. And I'm prepared to listen to what you had to say. But like I said, it's your choice. And I want you to know that whatever your choice is, we support it.
I'm not prone to be a kamikaze for no reason. I know how the vote will turn out, so I don't think it's my choice to waste my time nor yours.
All right. Well, so with that, are there any final comments for the good of the committee? Okay, so I think we're ready to go into adjournment until 9:30 tomorrow morning with the game plan that if we can work through the changes to the HB2 around the Sununu Center, we'll knock it out starting at 9:30. And if not, we'll reschedule to the afternoon to buy time for OLS. So with that, we're in adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.